I don't know much, but I know I love you, and that may be all I need to know. Kevin and Sarah yapped on about what they did or didn't know, but I didn't have time for their nonsense. I had plans to make. Heading south was out too damn hot. Canada was a no-go. They'd be looking for me at the border. Sure, many folks have luck coming this way illegally, but I'd surely get caught going the other way. Talking to myself about escape plans, I guided my wife's BMW through the midday interstate traffic. I had her car because she'd taken my Jeep to park in the long-term lot for her flight to Atlanta. Staying in the country might be an option if I could clean out our bank fast enough and get some papers and plastic surgery before the authorities began looking for me, but with my pale complexion and blue eyes, becoming Carlos Hernandez was definitely out of the question. I only had a couple of hours to figure it all out before I went to pick my wife Emily up from the airport, drive her to some secluded spot, and confront the cheating 304. So why am I, Mike Anderson, a 36-year-old software engineer from Rivertown, USA, rushing toward the till death do us part? I'd like to say that this thought of confronting Emily in such a way is a new thought that just struck me in the heat of the moment, so that maybe you'll believe I'm just a bit off today. But that's not the case. No, I've been preparing for this moment for the last 2 years. Well, maybe not planning to confront her per se, but I have been keeping pretty good tabs on her. This is not a snap decision. It's taken 2 years of tapping her cell, watching her PC email and IMs, and finally meeting with a PI to arrive at condemning the woman I love. This is a second marriage for both of us. My first marriage was to my high school sweetheart, Jessica. We married right out of high school, and since we both got full-ride scholarships, paying for room and board was never an issue. We lived together even through our freshman year when most students were restricted to the dorms. After we graduated, we decided to rent a small apartment until we could buy a house outright. We figured that with tight belts and pay raises, we'd have our house in 5 years. It was the fairy tale marriage until the day I came home from work early and found her with our landlord, who was deep inside her. I recall the warrant song I saw read and remember debates, while stoned, of course, about whether or not a person can actually get mad enough to see red. I'm here to tell you that I did indeed see red. I stepped outside of myself for a moment or two as my body just did what my subconscious brain told it to do without rational thought input from me. Then I saw red on my knuckles as I beat our landlord senseless. I never laid a hand on Jessica, though. I got lucky and got a sympathetic cop who, instead of cuffing me and making me do a perp walk out of the apartment, let me ride in the front of the car like a ride-along. I was booked quietly into jail and awaited an appointment with a judge. The judge was sympathetic as well and sentenced me to 1 year on probation and anger management classes. Robert, our landlord, refused to press charges and opted to tell everyone that he had fallen down some stairs. Jessica never begged me to take her back. I often wondered why she wouldn't at least fight to save the marriage. Then she was diagnosed with nymphomania, and I understood. She knew I'd never be enough for her, and that I would never allow her to explore on the side. She ended up moving down into Robert's apartment. He didn't do anything other than collect rent and fix the occasional leak, so he had all the time in the world to keep Jessica satisfied. During the divorce, I talked to her twice, once to let her know who my attorney was, and the second time to tell her I fully expected every cent I contributed toward rent back. The divorce was easy since we owned no property, and we each had the vehicles we'd had since high school. I got all of my money back, and a rare and sympathetic judge ignored her cries for spousal support, telling her, "Young lady, it seems you do pretty well supporting yourself already." My exit was the next one off of the interstate, and I jockeyed the BMW into the exit lane. Jessica had been my reason for existing through high school. As I turned onto the main thoroughfare that would take me home, I reflected on my life just after the divorce. I saw Jessica a month or two ago in line at a movie theater with 3 kids in tow. They all looked like they had different fathers. I had seen her sometime after our split at a nightclub. She spent half of the night on the dance floor, and the other half divided between being under a table and making out in the parking lot. She never noticed me that night, but I had no doubt I had made the right choice in divorcing her. I felt stupid for months afterward, wondering why I never picked up on any signs of her infidelity. I've read hundreds of articles and stories about cheating. Each time one of them goes through the telltales of a cheating spouse, I can't recall ever seeing the behavior in Jessica. The thought that I had missed some critical clue bothered me deeply. I was a very detail-oriented person, and I had missed one and possibly several crucial details. This thought was one that made me start drinking. I spent 3 months getting hammered every night and then trying to function at work the next day. It all came to a head when my program manager called me into his office. My program manager had been a DI in the Marine Corps and at times ran our group as if we were a class of new recruits. "Mike, I called you in here today because I feel we need to have a frank discussion about your job performance, or lack thereof. Have you ever heard the term worthless as tits on a boar?" "No, James, I can't say I've ever heard that one." "Mike, can you think of anything more worthless than tits on a boar?" I shook my head. "Well, son, you are rapidly approaching that level. Look, I know the divorce was hard on you, but it is way past time to snap out of it and carry on with life. You have 2 weeks vacation in your bank. As of today, I am considering you on vacation. You will use the 2 weeks to either drink your liver to oblivion or screw your head back on straight." "That's okay, James. I'll be fine." "You will not be fine, numbnuts," he yelled. "I'm sure that 15 heads out in the office suddenly swiveled our way. You need to quit walking around here like a goddamn love-struck puppy and grow some balls. You will take your vacation. I've already gotten it approved through HR. Get the hell out of here and use the 2 weeks wisely." I was pissed off as I left the office that day. What did James know anyway? Okay, so I had screwed a couple of things up. So I was irritable. He'd be irritable too if he went through what I did. Part of me realized that James was right. I had to stop feeling sorry for myself and move along. But Jessica had been the love of my life since we were freshmen. I got in my car and headed straight for Mac's Tavern. It was in there that my life would take a turn for the better. I was tipping my 3rd beer since I had arrived at Mac's when 3 guys that had gone to my school came in and grabbed a booth near where I sat. They had been 2 years ahead of me and didn't know me. They were talking amongst themselves, and soon the topic of women came up. "Do you know who I heard is moving back to town?" said one of them. "No, who?" "Samantha Brooks." "Well, she's Samantha Mitchell now, but she stepped out on old Rick one too many times, I guess, and is headed back here." "That ain't surprising," said the third. "In school it never mattered who she was dating. She would still be with Matt Harris every chance she got." "I was with her once," said the fourth. All 3 laughed at him. "Sure you did, Eddie. Then you woke up and dried your jammies. Samantha Brooks was a senior when I was a freshman. She was the head cheerleader and prom queen. If her beauty wasn't enough to grab a teenage band geek's attention, the fact that she was known to be very friendly did. One rumor had her with 6 guys under the bleachers during halftime of the homecoming game. I never heard it from anyone who saw it firsthand or from anyone who was involved, but always someone who heard it from someone who knew someone who was there. Take Megan Fox without the tattoos and you have Samantha. If Jessica was my reason for getting up each morning, Samantha was the reason my mom hated washing my socks. I know most guys would think I was nuts for drooling over a serial cheater, but I look at it like a guy would look at his dream car. He'd take a model with some flaws just to own one and work on those flaws. So in my head, I saw myself making an honest woman out of Samantha. Later that week, I was at my mom's house for dinner. She is really good friends with Samantha's parents. They've all gone to the same church for the past 10 years. Any good Catholic is just fine in my book is an all-time favorite quip of hers. There used to be 3 Catholic churches in our area. Our Lady of Mercy served mostly Hispanic worshipers to the east of our neighborhood. St. Peter's served the Italians northwest of us. And St. Joseph's served the mainly Irish population in the south. When 2 new churches were commissioned, the attendance at all 3 churches dropped. So the Archdiocese closed Our Lady of Mercy and St. Peter's. Most of the Hispanics went north to St. Teresa's Church, while the Italians decided to come to St. Joseph's. That is how my mother became close friends with my dream girl's mother. Not that it had ever done me any good until now. Emma Brooks tells me that Samantha is back home. Mike, do you remember Samantha? I played dumb. I think I kind of remember her. Didn't she graduate several years ahead of me? Mom, however, has never been stupid. Don't play stupid, Mike. It's quite annoying. You know damn good and well who Samantha is. Lord only knows how many times I found your yearbook open to her cheerleader page and a sticky note or two nearby. I started to protest and then thought better of it. I saw Samantha and Rick at Father Nelson's 2 days ago. I told them about your divorce, and Rick and I agreed that Samantha and you should get together and help each other through your divorces. Dream girl or not, there is nothing that kills a hardened quicker than mom intervention. Sure, I had planned to have her intervene, but damn it, she didn't have to make it all her doing. I was about to protest when she thrust a sticky note into my hand. That's Samantha's phone number. She'll be expecting your call. I knew the subject was closed for debate, so I just pocketed the number and dug into my plate of roast beef and cabbage. My dad just sat stoically at the end of the table, pouring through the latest car magazine. 2 days and 3 phone calls later, I found myself sitting in the bar at La Bella, waiting for my dream girl to make her entrance. Since that dinner at my mom's, all kinds of questions had played through my head. Had Samantha put on 300 pounds? Was this a pity date for the love-struck geek that couldn't hold on to his woman? The thought had even occurred to me that she might meet a guy on her way here, and I'd either be stood up or become a third wheel. I didn't have to wait long. At precisely 5 minutes before our decided time, she walked into the bar. Every guy in the place watched her walk in. Half the guys in there were definitely not getting laid that night. One girl slapped her guy, and I saw 2 more mouthing hateful things at their guys. She was just as beautiful as I had remembered. She had put on about 10 pounds, but in all the right places. Her face was perfect. She wore a denim skirt that came down to about mid-thigh and a turquoise tank top. A mid-length denim jacket was tossed over her shoulder, and she had on 3-inch heeled sandals. I was hoping that I wasn't sitting there slack-jawed or drooling. Mike, oh my God, you look amazing. I remembered you as a gawky freshman. Wow, how you have grown up. I felt my face turning red. I hadn't imagined her throwing herself at me, screaming "do me" at the top of her lungs, but I didn't expect the long-time no-see like an aunt I hadn't seen in a decade either. I took a hefty pull on my whiskey and soda. She sat down and ordered sangria, and we chatted about mundane things until the maigre informed us that our table was ready. As we waited for dinner, we talked about our failed marriages. Yeah, it's a no-no on date 1, but our moms had sent us here to talk about it, so we did. You don't cross Italian or Irish moms. I told her about catching Jessica and Robert together. Then she began telling me about life in Tennessee with Rick. For the first few years, Rick and I were great. But then I suppose every marriage is picture perfect for a while. Then when I started working, Rick seemed to change. He got jealous and paranoid. He would show up at my office unexpectedly during the day. Every time I'd go out to lunch, I'd see at least one of his creepy friends nearby, watching my every move. As the years went by, it got worse. New Year's Eve was the last straw. We always had a big New Year's Eve party. Everyone that Rick worked with came, as did all of our friends and neighbors. Nashville's best caterer was booked, and we'd hire a live 7-piece big band. People would show up around 7:00 in the evening. Men would go into the den to watch the college football games, and the women would sit around and gossip, mainly about the men, of course. By dinner time, everyone had a pretty good buzz going. We had roasted leg of lamb as the main entargc of our 7-course meal, as well as lots of drinks. By the time dinner was over, everyone was inebriated. About 11:00, the band started playing. There is nothing more entertaining than a bunch of drunks dancing to big band music. I chuckled, thinking of dozens of Colonel Sanders lookalikes dipping and dropping dozens of Southern belles on their chiffon-clad asses. It never took long for the dancing couples to start mixing. Many of the men sat down to drink while the women danced with those men who didn't. Rick was always a non-dancer, but he usually didn't mind if I danced, so I did. Charlie Carter was our closest neighbor, and we were close friends with him and his wife, Cindy. As most of the dancing crowd dwindled around 11:00, Charlie and I danced together more and more. At 10 minutes to midnight, I looked around for Rick but couldn't find him. As midnight got closer, Several people asked where Rick was, and nobody seemed to know. So I rang in the new year alone. An hour later, all of our guests had departed, and I went upstairs to go to bed. When I got to the top of the stairs, I saw a light coming out from under one of the guest room doors. I tried the door, and it was locked. "We'll talk in the morning, Samantha," said Rick from the other side of the door. I had no clue what he was throwing a fit over this time, but I was getting used to going to bed alone. When I went down for coffee New Year's morning, the cleaning crew was already busy removing all traces of the party. I walked into the kitchen to find Rick glowering at me over the morning paper. I cheerfully wished him a good morning and filled a mug with coffee. Since he never said a word to me, I took my coffee and a bagel out to the sunroom to enjoy a glare-free breakfast. I was halfway done when he made his appearance. So much for peace and tranquility. "So," he began, "how long has this been going on between you and Charlie?" I was shocked. "We danced last night." "Big deal. You never danced, and up till now you have never seemed to have a problem with it." Then he flew off the handle and accused me of cheating on him again. He demanded to know everyone I had been with behind his back. We ended up in a screaming match that ended with me throwing my coffee in his face and going to my room. He moved into the guest room, and I filed for divorce the following Monday. Within 6 months, we were in court. He fought every settlement offer, saying I was a cheating 304 and deserved nothing. We battled on and off for 4 months. In the end, we sold our house at a loss and split the profit $5,050. After all was said and done, we each walked away with a little over $20,000, and he got a drinking problem. We chatted about happier subjects as we ate. Pity date or not, I was enjoying myself. I hadn't even thought about this date going much beyond dinner. I thought maybe I'd ask her if she'd like to take a walk around a park, or if she'd like to go down and walk the riverfront. Things changed when I ordered another whiskey and soda. "You know, that is 4 of those you've had this evening," she said. "I haven't been counting, but I can afford them. I'm not worried about your wallet, Mike. I'm worried that you are going to suffer from whiskey dick and ruin this evening's more active phase. I have seen many spit takes on TV, but this is the first time I had ever done one. I sprayed my drink all over the place, luckily missing my shirt and her. The candle-bearing centerpiece didn't fare so well. While she laughed at me and I cleaned up, the waiter came by and asked if everything was all right. She looked at him with a smoldering look and said, 'Check, please.' As soon as I paid the check and left a hefty tip, she grabbed my hand and pulled me to the door. We left her car at the restaurant and drove to my apartment. She was staying with her parents, so it was the only option. Seconds after opening my door, I found myself pushed into my easy chair while Samantha straddled me. I had never been kissed with so much passion. I was afraid my fantasy come true was over when she pushed off of me and stood. She looked at me, and I felt my soul would melt away. She pulled off her jacket and tossed it aside, then crossed her arms in front of her. She gripped the bottom edge of her top and lifted it straight up, revealing the most luscious set of jugs I had ever laid my eyes on. She took a step towards me, and her skirt hit the floor. She wore a white lace thong that did nothing to disguise the fact that she kept herself shaved clean. I suddenly felt like the room was too hot and stuffy. My mouth went dry and my tongue swelled. Okay, those things didn't really happen, but I felt like I was close to hyperventilating. "Mike, you seem to be a tad overdressed now. Let me remedy that." She started unbuckling my belt and opening my pants. "Oh, Mike, I didn't know drummers were built like this." Actually, I was a trumpet player. Oh God, I didn't get to finish before she had started to give me an Aussie kiss. My mind went immediately to pondering the various compression ratios of the race engines my father had built over the years. It was a trick I'd used to sustain longer with Jessica. Over the years, I had made it no further than his third motor, a 350 Chevy. Samantha must have sensed it too and stopped. "Oh no, Mike, not yet. Ladies first. Mike, come on, stop teasing me." "Oh my God, I need you, Mike. Oh my God, you can't touch a girl like that and not finish the job." I never intended to abstain from finishing the job, so I don't know where she got that idea. It's crazy what crosses your mind at times. We both had wild and amazing sex. I remembered an incident from my early teen years, the butter incident. It was during my 12th summer that the butter incident occurred. I spent the summer running around with 3 guys from school: Jason, Chris, and Ray. We were inseparable that year. One night we were camped out in a tent in Chris' backyard. Jason had snuck a couple of his dad's magazines out, and we were looking at them with flashlights. "Hey, Jason," said Chris, "don't stick my dad's pages together." "Hell, get pissed." "How would we stick the pages together?" Ray asked. "Yeah," I said. "Kind of hard to see the pictures if the pages are stuck." Chris and Jason laughed like they knew some big universal secret. "He means don't be jacking off and screwing up his books," said Chris. I wasn't sure what jacking off was, and I'm not sure Ray did either. I wasn't about to ask and make myself the source of ridicule for the night. I'd ask my 15-year-old cousin Sherman when I saw him next about it. Soon the conversation turned to what chicks we'd all like to be with. Every supermodel had her name tossed into the hat, and several girls from school. After a bit, Jason said, "I bet you guys have never had any." We all claimed we had and accused him of never even seeing any. "Boys, I'll tell you what it feels like. Grab a stick of butter and use it. That's exactly what it feels like. Exactly what it feels like." That thought was in my brain for the next 3 weeks. I couldn't even go through the dairy aisle at the store without sporting wood. Sherman had explained to me the finer points of jacking off, so I was becoming a walking hormone. One day, while my mom was at my grandma's and my dad was at work, I finally decided to try it out. I walked into the kitchen and got Mom's brand new stick of butter. I never thought she'd notice I had done anything to it. So I unwrapped the stick and dropped my shorts. I remember the gooey feeling as I pressed myself into the butter. I was so busy concentrating that I didn't hear my mom come in until she hit the kitchen with Mrs. Beals from across the street. And 2 dozen cookies. "I have a dozen of—" "Mike Brian Anderson, what in God's name are you doing?" The hardest part of all of it was coming up with a viable excuse for my buddies as to why I was grounded for the week. To this day, my mom looks at me funny when she has a stick of butter out when I'm around. Samantha was about as passionate as anyone I'd ever been with, and she knew how to work it. She was moving up and down. This girl definitely knew what she was doing. After 20 minutes, I picked her up and laid her on the ottoman. Once on my knees in front of her, I entered her and began, "Wow, Mike, please tell me you don't have to be anywhere tomorrow." "No, I am off work for another week and don't do weekends anyway. Shall we see what fun we can have on a proper bed?" The next 48 hours were a blur. We had fun, we napped, we showered, and then had more fun. We went to sleep coupled and awoke in a frenzy. We did manage to eat a time or two. The kid who delivered our pizza on Saturday night was treated to Samantha answering the door in my bathrobe, fresh from our second shower that day. The poor kid who brought our Chinese food on Sunday evening was treated to me in boxers, fresh from our upteenth session that day. We actually slept most of Sunday night and showered together Monday morning. She had a job interview a little after noon, so I drove Samantha back to the restaurant to get her car. We sat in the empty lot for a few minutes before she got out. "What are you doing tomorrow?" she asked me. "Bettering myself or making life hard on someone else." "Why do you ask?" "Oh, I just wanted to see if you'd like to go hiking with me. We could have a picnic and enjoy the day." Enjoy the day we did. As a matter of fact, we have been enjoying days and nights almost non-stop ever since. "Dirty, rotten, filthy, guzzling scumbag 304, I yelled as I sat at a traffic light. I looked to my left to see a horrified soccer mom or housewife staring at me from her SUV. "Not you," I said to her. "Some other 304. I tried to laugh it off. She just continued to look at me like I had neon horns growing out of my skull. The light turned green, and Soccer Mama laid rubber trying to put distance between herself and the Tourette's BMW driver. I couldn't believe that she was really cheating on me. Our relationship started out hot and heavy and had not slowed down for 5 years. Maybe we had only mellowed out recently, but only slightly. We were still known to spend an entire weekend together. We even took a week off work a few years ago and never got dressed. I needed to go back to work to recover. We got married 7 months after that first weekend. The wedding was a spectacle. Italian Catholics and Irish Catholics in the same venue meant it was more of a bash than a wedding. Samantha's mom and dad, as tradition requires, paid for the whole wedding. I offered to help with the booze at the reception, only to be handed a wad of cash to help pay for my bachelor party. Not to be outdone, my parents paid for our honeymoon. Of course, all of the aunts and uncles who felt they needed to contribute gave us spending money for our trip. Mom had planned on sending us to Europe to see Ireland and Italy, but a passport mix-up that was going to take 3 months to straighten out left us on the North American continent. 2 weeks touring Canada, starting in Vancouver. 3 days in, and we never saw the mountains. On one of my nightly calls to Mom, she suggested we find other things to do on our honeymoon, like see some sights. She made the same comment when I called her from Victoria, Calgary, and Toronto. We did see some of these places. We just spent the majority of our time in our room. We saw more of Calgary since we often spent time on the balcony outside of our room. When we got to Montreal, we actually did tour the old port. We saw all the tourist sites had to offer there. When I told my mom this, she said, "Oh, so I take it your room wasn't ready when you got to town." I had to admit she was right, but we did enjoy the beaches at Vancouver and Victoria. Some were nude beaches that offered private areas, and on some, we just relaxed in the sun. On our return flight to Denver, Samantha and I joined the Mile High Club. Our early years together were pure bliss. There weren't many nights that we went without some form of intimacy. Even during her monthly visit from Aunt Flo, she would offer me a treat. Samantha also started what would become my biggest hobby. In her job as an insurance adjuster, she comes across many different kinds of people. Once, she was going through a client's car that was to be scrapped, and she came across a box of auto parts. She went to throw the box in the trash when the client called for her to stop. "I thought I'd lost those," he told her. "They look like junk parts," she said. "What do you want them for?" "These aren't just junk parts. These are collectibles," he explained. Samantha scoffed and went back to her task. "No, really," he said, holding up a part. Samantha didn't know a carburetor from a key ring. "This is from Dale Earnhardt's Daytona-winning car. It's worth $5,000. This is from Richard Petty's last race. It's worth $10,000. Later, she did some online research into motorsports memorabilia. She found a lot of things that were worth a lot of money to the right person. She had little interest in racing, but knew I followed drag racing religiously. I wondered why she suddenly started questioning me about different drag racers and asking to look through my stores of old magazines. She was religious about it for a few weeks. Then I didn't hear much more about it, though she lost interest. Our moms threw us an anniversary party that year. There was a lot of drinking and a lot of eating and a lot of drunk Irish and Italians before all was said and done. After dinner, our moms suggested we exchange our gifts. I had saved for 3 months and used all of my bonuses to buy Samantha a diamond necklace with matching earrings, bracelet, and anklet. She teared up and hugged me fiercely after she opened it. "Oh, Mike, it's so beautiful." Then she handed me my box. I opened it to find 2 spark plugs wrapped in tissue paper. I saw that the plugs would fit nothing I own and was wondering why she would give me spark plugs to begin with. Then I saw the certificate in the box, certifying that these plugs had been in the number 4 cylinder of Kenny Bernstein's Bud King when he became the first driver to go faster than 300 miles per hour in 1992. That was how my collecting began. Along with King Kenny's spark plugs, I also have the valves from the number 3 cylinder of Joe Amado's first 280 miles per hour run, the blower belt from Chuck Etchell's first 4-second funny car run, as well as the number 2 piston from Jim Epler's first 300 miles per hour funny car pass. I also have several other items that either Samantha or I have found and bought over the years, but my most prized and coveted mementos come from the same car. In 1988, Eddie Hill did something no one else had ever done. He became the first driver to go quicker than 5 seconds in a quarter mile. In 1987, Gene Snow drove a quarter mile in 5 seconds flat at Indianapolis. I have 3 of his spark plug wires from that run. The following year in Dallas at an IHRA event, Eddie Hill ran the first ever 4.99 pass in history. Later, at an NHRA event in Houston, He ran 4.93 to become the first in both sanctioning bodies to do this. Eddie's crew chief, Fuzzy Carter, took the pistons from both historic runs and turned them into clocks. Of the 16 clocks, I own one. It is the number 2 piston from the Dallas run. Samantha and I have searched high and low and have found only 4 of the clocks from the Houston run. 2 owners won't sell, but 2 others might. One guy was from Des Moines, Iowa, the other from Abilene, Texas. Samantha was always an outdoor type. She always had us out skiing or swimming on the weekends. Not that I objected, but it made it hard for me to reciprocate the fabulous collectibles she got me. After a few years, I was on a first-name basis with every outfitter and raft guide in the state, and a few out of state. We also had success at our jobs. Samantha beat me home one evening, and when I walked into the house and found a bottle of champagne chilling and a roast duck being prepared for dinner, I knew something was up. "Hey, babe, what's the occasion?" I was a tad bit worried that I had forgotten some anniversary. I knew she wasn't pregnant. We had discovered 2 years before that she was barren. Her uterus had never formed, so she was incapable of bearing a child. We had considered adopting and then just decided we'd be dinks dual income, no kids. I got promoted. Rex called me to his main office this afternoon and told me I was being made the manager of our whole office. No more watching people pick through wreckage and crying about it when I get home. I will send others to do that part. Needless to say, I had to call off work the next 2 days as we celebrated. James was quite used to me having sudden illnesses since I had hooked up with Samantha. He always told me that I was more productive than before, so he was inclined to look the other way. 2 months later, Alan Bradley called me into his office. Alan was the head of our company, and I was sure I was going to be fired for excessive absences. James may have looked the other way, but Linda McButtface McCarthy, the HR manager, had likely caught us in the act. "Mike, have you ever thought about the job of the project managers? In what terms? How bad they suck, how hard it must be taking credit for 15 other people's work, taking your sack to the chin," I thought, but did not say. I was wondering if he was trying a guilt trip on me and was going to fire James. "No, sir, I just do what James asks of me. I don't truly give much thought to his tasks." "Well, Mike, you might want to. As of Monday next, you are one." My mind dropped out for a moment, leaving me with an obviously stupid expression on my face. "If you don't want the job, I'm sure I can find someone who does," he said. "No, I'll gladly take the job, Mr. Bradley. But what about James?" "James will still do his job. Mike, you will be getting your own group. It's secret stuff, so we'll have to pick your group wisely, but you'll have a ton of say in who gets on board." I spent the next 2 hours poring through personnel files and resumes with Alan, and finally, we had 6 solid people to put on my team. I also had to sign a non-disclosure statement. It turned out that NSA and a few other shady organizations were paying for the software my team would develop. Officially, my team and I were changing divisions in the company. Only the team would know I was the manager, and the other managers would only know that the folks on my team reported to an outside manager. Alan gave me the rest of the week off and a prepared script for sharing the news with Samantha. I made reservations at one of the ritziest restaurants in Denver and got us a hotel room for a night. Let's just say that Samantha took the rest of the week off as well, and we both needed to go to work Monday to recover. Up until 3 months after our promotions, we had the perfect marriage. It's funny how a few hours can change the outlook for someone. A few exchanged words with another person can make you look at the world and your significant other quite differently. "Hey, yeah, you don't know what it's like, baby. You don't know what it's like to love somebody the way I love you," Barry and Morris sing. I sure do know what it's like. You don't know what it's like when that screwing somebody can't keep their mother-effing legs closed. I probably looked stupid chastising the brothers Gibb on the radio, but I didn't care. I was only 1 left turn and 5 blocks from home and still didn't fully know my exact plan of action. I wanted to confront her with the truth, but I didn't want to spend the rest of my life dealing with the aftermath. The green arrow lit up, and I made my turn. I realized I was quite possibly making this turn for the last time. Maybe I was stupid for ever thinking a guy like me could hold on to a girl like Samantha. I remember exactly when the first seeds of doubt were planted about the faithfulness of my wife. Traditionally, during homecoming weekends, some classes held impromptu class reunions. My class was no different, but I never liked many of the alumni who would likely show up, nor did I care which chick got fat, which jock lost his hair, or who had so many brats that their uterus collapsed. Samantha, however, lived for homecoming weekend. We attended the game, even though this year looked to be a waste of time. Our team was one loss from being eliminated from playoff contention, and we were playing our biggest rival. They were undefeated and led the state in every category. There were at least a dozen tailgate parties by Samantha's class alone. She and I traditionally went to a local Italian place and then went to the stadium. We went a little earlier and had a few beers with her old cheerleader squad. I had to admit most of them were still hot. I say most because the three witches that Samantha always had problems with all gained at least 100 pounds and looked like trailer trash. The other team jumped out to a 14-point lead early, and our crowd became subdued. Samantha had even hinted about maybe leaving around halftime to beat the traffic. Then, with 5 minutes left to go in the first quarter, we intercepted a pass and scored. And the first quarter ended at 14-7. We never looked back. At the end of the game, our team walked off more like danced off the field, 45-14 victors. The alumni went nuts, and there was no way I was even going to attempt that hack. I had back doors into several NSA programs, but there was no way to task the satellites without them knowing. There was also a zero chance that Samantha would be IMing or texting her every conversation during her time in Cleveland. The only option I then had was to hire a PI and have them tailor during her trip. Since I had her itinerary, it wasn't hard at all for them to plan their surveillance. I had quite a bit of money in my savings account that I used to buy Samantha gifts and such. So secretly being able to afford to pay the PI team was not hard, but I was glad Samantha didn't travel often. Samantha was gone for 3 days. I was on pins and needles for the entire time. I called my attorney, Jay Whitfield, and asked him to draw up divorce papers. He told me I was being paranoid. When I told him it was just in case, he said he'd charge me double if I changed my mind after he drew them up, so I told him to hold off. He said that I would thank him later. As Samantha's flight was leaving Cleveland for Denver, I was in the office of Jerry Conant, the PI I had hired. My employers and I used Jerry often in our research and background checks for sensitive work groups. He and his guys always did a thorough job. Jerry had sent 3 of his guys to cover Samantha in Cleveland. 2 of them flew in the day before and staked out her hotel. They had managed, and by managed I mean bribed the clerk to get the room next to hers. They punched a couple of small holes in the wall between the rooms in case she took a guy in and they could get photographic evidence. The 3rd guy tailed Samantha to and from the airport and boarded the same plane. When they got to Cleveland, there was never a moment, except for when she was alone in her room or in meetings, that one of the 3 wasn't watching her. As the plane carrying her and one of the PIs was leaving Cleveland, the other 2 were sending the report to Jerry. I sat in his office as he printed out the report. He scanned it quickly and then went back to his computer and printed a few more things. "Mike, your girl didn't do a damn thing while she was in Cleveland." He put a paper in front of me that detailed her comings and goings, including her meals and showers. The only thing here that is even slightly hinky is this. He pushed a stack of pictures in front of me. The pictures showed Samantha hugging some guy twice. I couldn't see his face in the first few shots. "The guy arrived in Cleveland as your wife was leaving. According to my guys, he was heading for a connecting flight to Indianapolis when they met. No clue as to what flight he got off of. The last photo I saw showed his face clearly. It was Matt Harris, Samantha's best-known cheating partner. I knew that nothing had happened on this trip, but the appearance of Matt Harris meant I couldn't let my guard down. When Samantha got home, I asked her about her trip. She told me that it had been pretty mundane and boring, listening to 17 keynote speakers ramble on about insurance. It's better than anesthesia. Even the gung-ho types were yawning to beat hell. I had been to programming seminars that would kill if not for massive amounts of caffeine, especially that one in Indianapolis 2 years ago. She chuckled and then informed me she needed a shower. I was a bit miffed over her lack of disclosure about running into an old friend, but I didn't dare tip my hand and let her know she was under surveillance. When she'd been in the shower for a minute or two, I heard her call to me. I figured she had forgotten to grab a towel or shampoo. As soon as I walked into the bathroom, she was on me in no time. I was stripped and pulled into the shower. 4 hours later, the kid delivering the Mexican food was subjected to the sight of me in my hastily donned boxers. For several months, nothing came up to arouse my suspicions. Then one day, out of the blue, she opened a Facebook account. I was leery because 3 guys I worked with had their wives leave them for guys they found on Facebook. So needless to say, I kept a real close eye on her Facebook activity. She gained about 70 friends during the first week. Mainly they were people she went to school with or worked with. There were a few guys whom I was sure hit her up because of her profile photo. She must have felt the same way because she rejected those without a second look. I was a bit alarmed when I discovered that the chat feature on the site was missed by my software, but I wrote an update that fixed that right away. 2 months ago, she got the friend request I had been dreading. I read the words and felt my anger rise. "Matt Harris has sent you a friend request. Do you know Matt?" Instead of yelling or cursing, I just deleted the request. Maybe good old Matt would just take a hike. I wasn't that lucky. I was working in my den that evening when I got a chat alert for Samantha's Facebook account. I almost ignored it, thinking that it was her friend from work, Rachel, witching about Carl the mail guy or something. Then that gut feeling kicked in, and I opened the window. Matt Harris. "Hey, sweetie, why didn't you answer my friend request?" Samantha Mitchell. "What request? I didn't get any today." "Matt Harris, I sent you one. Too bad you didn't get any." "I do you if hubby wants." Samantha Mitchell Pig. "That's probably why I turned you down." Matt Harris. "Thought you said you got none today." Samantha Mitchell. "Send another. Ill accept." I know I didn't get one today. I knew there was no stopping it without her knowing something was awry, so I just sat back and prepared to monitor her a lot more. For the most part, they talked about people from high school and their lives. Matt was an auto finance specialist, and he lived in South Bend, Indiana. For the next few weeks, they chatted idly. He tried to take the conversation sexual, but to her credit, Samantha always put an abrupt stop to it. There were a few times as well that I considered sending him a nice virus. For the most part, they kept their chats tame. 3 weeks ago, Samantha's boss sent her an itinerary for the annual meetings. This year, they were being held in Dallas, Texas. Once again, I had all of the information that I needed to feed my PI. I never saw Samantha mention the Dallas trip to Harris in their chats, but a week before she was scheduled to leave, he started asking her about it. Matt Harris. "So when you gone to TX?" Samantha Mitchell. "How'd you find out about that?" Matt Harris. "Trolled your page, saw a post from your friend Anna." Samantha Mitchell. "So then you probably know when I'm going." Matt Harris. "I have to get a ticket to TX, I guess." Samantha Mitchell. "You'll never do it." Matt Harris. "I accept that challenge. I hoped he was bluffing. I looked for a way to block him from getting airfare, but once again, with perpetrating a risky hack into sensitive NSA computers not being an option, there was nothing I could really do. I wished I had gotten more pertinent information on the guy so I could make his attempt at my wife impossible, but all I could do was watch and prepare for the worst. I wasn't prepared for the worst, though, and I caused it. 3 days before Samantha was set to leave for Dallas, I watched a chat session between her and Matt. Matt Harris. "Hey, babe, Samantha Mitchell can't. You greet someone like a normal human." Matt Harris. "Who wants normal? Oops, damn caps lock." Matt Harris. "I got exciting news, babe." I didn't know much about Matt Harris, but I quickly deduced that tact and spelling were not his strong suits. This idiot needed to buy Hooked on Phonics. I had to stifle a laugh or 3 as I read his crap. Matt Harris. "I got my tickets to Dallas." Matt Harris. "No rooms at the Marriott, though." Matt Harris. "But Best Western is just up the road." Samantha Mitchell. I shouldn't have told you where my meeting was, Matt Harris, that I have a surprise for you too, Samantha Mitchell. Oh, really, what surprise? Your tool? Samantha Mitchell. Seen it, not impressed. Matt Harris, you never complained before. Samantha Mitchell. So what's your big surprise, Matt Harris? I tracked down Gary and Arnie, Gary Darling and Arnold Phillips. Those two and Matt were three of the supposed participants in the infamous homecoming gangbang. A chill ran up my spine when I realized what Harris was aiming for. I just hoped that Samantha wasn't game. For some reason, I had never asked her about the gangbang. I'm not sure how you ask your wife to tell you about the time she was with 6 guys under a sea of football-watching asses. Back when I was a hormone-driven kid, I wanted the rumor to be true. Now I hoped it had never happened. I had a sick feeling in the pit of my stomach. I knew a lot hinged on the next few minutes. Matt Harris. So what you think? Get the gang back together? Matt Harris. It worked beautifully once. Samantha Mitchell. Oh yeah, I want it to be exactly like last time. Exactly like last time. Is she asking this a-hole to track down the other 3 guys from that night? I lost my temper. I didn't fly off the handle and rush out into the room and punch her in the mouth. I kept my wits enough to not let her know I was watching her. "What the hell?" I said as I typed a simple command into my computer. Moments later, I knew it had worked because I could hear Samantha trying to get her laptop to work. One of the features NSA had asked for was a command that would wipe out a hard drive from a remote computer. This was mainly to prevent enemies from getting proof they were being spied on. It also worked in the case of one of their computers being stolen or compromised. In my moment of anger, I entered the command and wiped out Samantha's hard drive. I had stopped the conversation cold, but I also stopped my main source of information. I silently cursed myself and began brainstorming ways to get back into her secret world. 10 minutes later, she came into my office with her laptop. She looked lost. "Mike, my laptop seems to have died. Can you fix it, baby?" I was fascinated to check her laptop out. I hadn't gotten to see any of my handiwork from the field tests, so I wanted to take full advantage of this situation. I was also concerned that I had lost a very important intelligence channel. I decided I would go buy her a new laptop and load my program onto it as soon as I could the next day. "Looks like your hard drive is shot, hun. I'll get you a new laptop on my way home tomorrow evening. Don't worry about it, baby. I'll have Rachel issue me a company laptop until I get back from Dallas." Hell, I didn't want her to use company machines. I was morally bankrupt enough to put snooper programs on her machine, but I didn't want to add it to her employer's equipment. Mainly, it could be construed as industrial espionage, and I didn't think it could be detected, but until my guys had exhausted every possibility, I didn't know it couldn't be stumbled upon by some half-assed techno-geek. So like it or not, I was going into her big trip blind. At least I knew I had the PI on the ground at the right place and times. I bought her a new laptop the next day on my lunch break. By the time I was ready to go home for the day, I had all of my extras on her machine and running. I took it home to her and she was pleased, but her presentations for her meetings were all on the laptop that she borrowed from work. She had a big presentation to give on the last day of the meeting. She said she'd wait until she was back from Dallas to use her new one. I did get a thank you kiss out of the deal, so while Samantha was in Dallas, I sat and stewed. Mostly I tried to keep my mind off of what might be happening by working on the newest updates for the NSA programs. They liked what we had done so far, so much so that they sent a whole new list of specifications they wanted the software to meet. Of course, they gave us weeks to do what looked like it would take months to do, so my crew was working at home as well as at work. So I was good and tired when this morning rolled around. I went to work for a few hours. Between running to the break room for coffee and going to the bathroom, I don't know how I got anything accomplished. At 11:30, I went to meet with Jerry Conant at his office. 10 minutes after I sat in his conference room, Jerry walked in with a packet of papers and a sheepish look on his face. Somehow, I knew what he was going to say before he said it. "Mike, I've got some good news and I've got some bad news," I finished for him. I felt my blood beginning to boil as I envisioned him handing me a USB drive of Samantha being with 3 or more guys in some Dallas hotel room. Jerry must have known what I was thinking as he handed me a USB drive and copies of the report. No, it's not bad news like that, or at least we don't think so. Let me start at the beginning. Jerry's secretary brought me in a bottle of water and quickly left. "Okay, David followed your wife from your driveway to the airport," he said. 3 guys talked to her, but nothing came of it. He actually sat behind her on the flight. She read a book, an H.P. Lovecraft compilation, it seems. She arrived in Dallas 3 minutes late and claimed her bags. Sandy picked her up and followed from there. She went straight to the ground transportation area and got the shuttle that serves the hotel where she was staying. She arrived at her hotel, checked in, and then took her bags up to her room. "Jerry, are all of the mundane details necessary?" I asked out of frustration. "Well, no, I guess they aren't." She went to the evening meetings and dinner and went to bed after watching Letterman. Meanwhile, we managed to find out what flight Harris and the other 2 guys were on and trailed them to the Best Western a mile down the road from Samantha. Those 3 spent the night drinking and reminiscing. There is an audio-video file on the drive I gave you. Yesterday morning, Samantha had breakfast alone in the hotel diner, went to her meetings, had lunch with colleagues, had meetings all afternoon, and went to her room after the meetings let out. Harris, Darling, and Phillips showed up at her hotel 3 or 4 times, talked to the desk clerk once, and made phone calls from the lobby. Samantha's room phone rang in conjunction with their calls. I was getting more pissed off by the minute. Most of all, I wanted to know Samantha's culpability in all of this. I also wondered why, if Samantha had said she wanted the gangbang to be exactly the same, there were only 3 guys. Jerry continued his report. I was focusing on my own question until he got interesting. During her dinner, Harris sat down at her table. He asked her how late she was going to be, and after she replied, he left and rejoined Darling and Phillips in a bar next to the hotel. After the meetings were done for the evening, Samantha went to the hotel lounge with her colleagues. She took a call on her cell and wrote a couple of things on a napkin. Sandy couldn't get close enough to hear what was said or to see what was written on the napkin. When a colleague asked Samantha, she just replied it was personal business. At 9:30, the party broke up, and they all headed for their rooms. At 9:45, Samantha answered a phone call to her room phone. David wasn't able to record it. Then she went down to the lounge again. Sandy was in the lounge, and my 3rd guy, Jeff, tailed Harris, Darling, and Phillips to the lounge from the bar. Samantha came down to the lounge and sat and talked to the 3 guys for 40 minutes. The conversation was pretty mundane, but you have an audio copy of that too. When Samantha finished her drink, she bade them all good night and left for her room. Harris then remarked to Darling and Phillips that she had given him her cue to wait 10 minutes. He'd then go up and call them when she was ready, but he wanted a few minutes alone with her first. 10 minutes later, Harris knocked on Samantha's door. They had a short conversation outside her door. David's recorder still wasn't working. David said it got a bit heated, and security escorted Harris from the hotel. So far, it sounded like good news to me. So then, as soon as she gets out of her meetings today, she'll fly home. She'll arrive at 4:00 and all will be fine. Well, in theory, it could turn out that way. After breakfast this morning, Samantha headed to her room and collected her luggage. Usually, the folks at these meetings do that and stash their stuff in a cloakroom. Sandy got separated from her on the way to the elevator and had to wait. David was napping since Sandy was covering Samantha and didn't hear her come or go. When Sandy finally made it up to the room, she listened and couldn't hear anything. She and David immediately headed downstairs to try to reacquire her before the meetings. "Look," he said, "I will only charge you for half of the job." When David and Sandy couldn't locate her at her hotel, they called Jeff. Jeff said his trio also left early, but he lost them in the morning rush hour traffic. "I have told my team to come home. I'm so sorry, Mike, but there's just no knowing where she is. We only know she's not in her meeting, her hotel, or Harris Hotel. That was 50 minutes ago." I stormed through my front door and was greeted by Rocky, my 3-year-old German Shepherd. "I hope you are ready to live on the lam, boy," I said as I headed to my office. I was going to start getting the bank accounts drained, set up a vacation fund for Samantha, and then make a quick trip upstairs to pack. I sat down and had just started my PC when I realized that Samantha's laptop was no longer on my desk. I heard something behind me and turned around to face her. "I thought I heard you come in," she said. I turned and put my plan into motion. "I missed you, baby. Hey, do you want to go to dinner? Don't you know? Don't you know? Don't you know that you are a shooting star? Don't you know, don't you know that you are a shooting star and all the world will love you just as long as you are?" Paul Rogers' voice pours into my ears as the clock hits 3:00 a.m. I look to my side and smile at my sleeping Rocky. I silently wish my life could be as simple as Heiseit: sleep, get rubbed, go for a walk, and take a nap. What a life. Not that my life is all that bad. I have a great job, a nice house, and a faithful wife. When I came home earlier today, ready to confront Samantha, I was surprised to find her standing behind me. "I thought I heard you come in. Were you talking to someone?" A million things ran through my mind as I realized I had to change my plan on the fly. I was just about to talk her into taking a nice drive with me out into the boondocks when she handed me a box with a ribbon tied around it. From the look on her face, she had pulled off some kind of gifting coup DGC tat. I pulled the ribbon and opened the box. I found myself looking at the number 4 piston clock from Eddie Hill's historic 4, 93-second run in Houston. I couldn't speak. I looked up to be pulled into my wife's loving arms. I felt the tears in my eyes as I struggled to put my deep, heartfelt thanks into words. Samantha silenced me with a kiss. "I did it. I got you the Holy Grail." She then told me how she'd been in communication with the guy in Abilene for the past month, using her friend's email and her work phone to avoid me seeing anything on the bills. She even had her boss negotiating with the guy at times. She had finagled getting her presentation moved up a day so she could meet with the guy before she flew home. She checked out of the hotel and headed straight to Fort Worth to meet him. He was at a collector's show there, and then she took the first flight home. So here I am at 3:00 in the morning, listening to music on my PC in my den, wearing nothing but a pair of silk boxers with pictures of Shaggy and Scooby-Doo all over them. They were a birthday gift from Samantha 3 years ago, and I had to put on something to go out and move Samantha's BMW into the garage at 2:00 a.m. The Jimmy John's kid also saw me in them when he brought our sandwiches around 7:00. I am removing most of my spyware from Samantha's computer. I'll keep a ghost program there, looking for a few keywords, but I am going to trust Samantha. She has earned it, and then some. Thanks for tuning in to this intense story of deception, suspicion, and unexpected twists. What would you do if you found yourself in a situation like this? Could you trust again? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more gripping stories.